I love this story. Jesus is so clever, and he's always teaching. And in one story after another in Mark, Jesus is constantly surprising his observers, who happen to be often his own disciples. He's showing them that the kingdom of God is upon them, and that it's breaking open and revealing something unexpected and something very radical. And we will see over and over again his disciples and other observers will misunderstand him. And it won't be until the end of the gospel, when he's dying, that the Roman centurion, seeing him dying, is the one who recognizes just who Jesus is. In this gospel story today, Jesus is on a journey in a non-Jewish territory. And I suspected that he's withdrawn to this area in order to have a special encounter with the non-Jewish world. And when this woman comes to him where he is staying, he has this dialogue with her. Now, what's interesting is if this had just been a woman with a request for healing and Jesus granting it, well, we'd miss the power that's behind the story. Because this story has a powerful teaching, first for Jesus' disciples, secondly for the early church, thirdly for the ages to come, and most especially for us. So I'm going to ask you to just use your imaginations a little while we retell this story in order to understand the deeper significance. The woman is a Syrophoenician. She is a Gentile, and she comes from the area of Tyre and Sidon, and she speaks Greek. So she has an interpreter to relay her message to Jesus, because Jesus speaks Aramaic. And she basically says, "My daughter is in deep trouble. Nobody seems to be able to help her. She's disturbed, and she's troubled. It's as though some evil spirits have taken possession of her. Please, sir, I hear that you are a man of God who has great power and healing. Please, heal my daughter." Jesus is deeply moved by this woman, and he's watching his disciples carefully, and he's drawing them in, first of all, by shocking them by the mere fact that he's talking to this woman who's a foreigner, and she's a woman. And he says to her, "Woman, I know that you are in a difficult position, but I have to think first of my primary mission, and that's to the people of Israel. Now, I don't know if you know this, but we consider you to be an outcast, an enemy, because you are a Gentile. And we would traditionally say that the food that we eat is for our children, not the dogs." Now, Jesus has programmed his disciples to approve of his response, because like the scribes and the teachers of the law, this kind of exclusive thinking made the Jewish people think that they were special and reminded them again and again that they were God's chosen people. It gave them their identity. But Jesus also could read this Syrophoenician woman's heart, and he knew that her passionate love for her daughter was not going to stop her from getting her request. She would be persistent. And she responds, "But sir, like the dogs, I take even the scraps from the children's table." So Jesus, while his heart is racing because of this woman's wonderful response, he's hoping that his disciples' hearts are softening and that they will begin to see all people as God's people, all people as God's children, all people as part of the coming of God's kingdom. And then he turns to the woman, he says, Woman, the demon has gone out of your daughter. Go and be with her again." Jesus didn't have words to describe to anyone the absolute delight he felt at this moment. only Jesus could have imagined what it meant to him. I think the question begs us to stop and think, whom do we exclude? Who's foreign? Who's different? Who's frightening? Who's confusing to me? What people do I have a hard time seeing as God's children?